heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
It's 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, June 23rd, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Colorado's blue, America's red. It all meets right here on the Jeff and Bill Show, where you're invited to be a part of the conversation. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson. George Teal's live in studio with us. Douglas County Commissioner, dressed to the nines. You're not going to want to miss it. Go to x.com/Jeff Hunt or 710KNUS or our YouTube channel, and you can see him, dapper young man, George Teal, live in studio. We'll get to him. We're going to talk home rule. We're going to talk Douglas County attorney receiving an online briefing about where the money for those No Kings demonstrations coming from. So this is a conversation you're not going to want to miss. Let's go to the phones real quick, and then we'll get to news. Anna from Littleton. Good morning, Anna. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Bill. I would like to answer Bill's question, and please forgive me for answering you with another question. Your question was, how do we know that they were close to have a nuclear bomb? Well, my question is, have they left the inspectors totally open to inspect their facilities for decades and decades and decades? Have they?
Well, here's the thing, Anna. Remember, we had an agreement in place to examine those places, and who pulled us out?
I don't know.
That'd be Trump. Trump in 2018.
But the IACA was still investigating.
Yeah, they had some, but the problem is the IACA, without the leverage of sanctions from the U.S., the sanctions are very minor. And so Iran started playing very loosely and started enriching uranium almost a month right after we pulled out of the deal in 2018. So we could have had eyes while not 110%. We would have more of an idea of where their program is than now. However, I disagree that we lean on Netanyahu telling us exactly where the program is, because I can go back to the 90s and Netanyahu saying they were weeks away.
Yeah, but the IACA just a few weeks ago said that they have deep concerns about the enrichment that's taking place there, yes. And that's no bastion of Zionism or
not at all.
Conservatism.
But remember, enrichment is not a bomb. The technology is vastly different. Enrichment does not equal having the ability to launch a nuclear weapon. They're totally different.
Let me ask you one question, Bill. You are very intelligent. Why do you think they haven't completed the nuclear bomb?
Why Iran hasn't? Because it's hard.
Yes, sir.
It's very hard. Nuclear technology is incredibly difficult.
Let me tell you why. Because they are bad managers of their money. The economy is not that great. But most importantly, because our president, one of them at least, gave them money, and they use it for terrorists. You say that they haven't done anything, that they are just bullies, right? You didn't use that word, but they are just threatening us. Well, bullies are dangerous, and they did have affected us, and that's why Trump wants to get them out of the way. They have damaged installations. They have damaged our soldiers. They have damaged our interests. How can you say that they are just bullies and they are just shouting, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and never do that? That is absolutely not true. They have damaged us. They are bad people. They are bad managers of the economy. And obviously, they are controlling government that they don't let their people free. But that doesn't matter to me.
No, Anna, that's true. But has any of that changed? Anna, has any of that changed?
The reason that they haven't done more damage is because they are giving money to the terrorists, and the terrorists have damaged us.
Anna, has any of that changed? Anna, has any of that changed since Trump got in power? And what I mean by is all the things that you were talking about before existed before, and they exist now. And the reason I'm asking this, and we'll talk about it later, and I appreciate the phone call, is the idea of America first. Is that's where I started the conversation. Is yes, Iran bad. Iran was horrible beforehand and horrible during the Trump administration. The issue that I've got, and I appreciate the call, Anna, is the idea of America first. Is convinced me because we were told we were pulling up the drawbridges. We were told we were going to be focusing on what was going on inside the continental United States. We weren't going to have these wars of adventure, look at regime change, and somehow over the weekend, not only did we bomb another country, but we also started talking about regime change? That's it. That's why I'm curious, and we'll get back to this later, about the idea of someone needs to help me understand how
Bill,
this is America
I will give
first.
you the comment on regime change. Now, all of a sudden, starts to feel a lot more like Iraq and Afghanistan. But again, a reminder, it was targeted at these nuclear facilities. We're not amassing troops yet. We're not talking about bringing back democracy. I don't know. But that term, regime change, now I'm like, yeah. I hope we're not going back into 2001.
Yeah. And how would America feel if, for whatever reason, for a response to Ukraine or something, Russia had some targeted strikes inside of America? They weren't starting a war. It was just targeted. All
right. We will pivot on this. We'll come back in the 8 o'clock hour to the same conversation, but I want to welcome now, we'll get to him in just a second, Douglas County Commissioner George Teal. We're going to talk Douglas County attorney receiving an online briefing about where some of the money for the No Kings demonstrations coming from. We're also going to talk home rule because that election's tomorrow, if I believe. So, not going to want to miss this conversation. Now is time for News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
Good Monday morning, 57 and partly cloudy in Denver. Expecting a high of 80 today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
DJT scheduled to meet with his national security team today following this weekend's airstrikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities.
The goal stated very clearly in a letter the president sent the Supreme Leader about 67 days ago. And in a letter he said, you're not going to have a nuclear weapon. Let's negotiate peacefully a solution. We can make a really good deal that's good for Iran, good for America, good for the world. If you don't, however, then I'm going to have to deal with this differently. The Iranians didn't like the letter. They didn't respond to it. They ultimately entered into fake negotiations and tried to play him along. In essence, they thought they could do with President Trump what they've done with presidents in the past and get away with it.
Marco Rubio, Iran is promising retaliation. Tehran has also continued to launch drones and missiles at Israel, and they've continued attacks, bombing a number of airports across Iran. Vice President J.D. Vance on retaliation from Iran.
What we're prepared for is if they attack us in a maximal direction, first of all, we have got maximum defensive posture. I think that we're going to be able to defend as many of our people as possible. And of course, I'd encourage Americans to pray for our guys in the Middle East because, yes, they are under a significant amount of duress and a significant amount of threat right now. But then, of course, John, if the Iranians attack us, they're going to be met with overwhelming force. And I don't think the president could be clear about this. If you look at what we did yesterday, John, we did not attack the nation of Iran. We did not attack any civilian targets. We didn't even attack military targets outside of the 3 nuclear weapons facilities that we thought were important to accomplish our goal of preventing Iran from having a nuclear weapon.
That's J.D. Vance once again on John Carl on ABC. The State Department is putting out a worldwide caution security warning. They said the conflict between Israel and Iran has resulted in disruptions to travel and periodic closure of airspace across the Middle East. It's in its alert, the State Department advised U.S. citizens worldwide to exercise increased caution. A dead body has been recovered at Watson Lake, where authorities have been searching for 80-year-old Larry Baker in Larimer County. The identity of the person or cause of death have not been released yet. AI is helping wildland firefighters catch fires before too much damage can be done.
This kind of response that we've put together here in Douglas County is nearly unparalleled.
Douglas County's Office of Emergency Management Director Mike Alexander says a lightning strike started a fire in a remote area where no one could yet see the smoke. An AI camera set up near Turtle Mountain Sunday detected it and notified fire crews of its location. Within 4 hours, that fire was contained. The county now has a dozen of these cameras funded through a partnership with utility companies. County leaders say it's part of a growing wildfire response effort that includes the state's only dedicated heli-attack team and plans for year-round aerial support. Tennessee judge moving to release the illegal immigrant Kilmar Garcia, who's been living in Maryland and is now awaiting trial on human smuggling charges. U.S. Magistrate Judge Barbara Holmes says that Garcia isn't a flight risk and has scheduled a hearing for Wednesday to set release conditions. But ICE may still detain him if he's let go, and federal prosecutors say they plan to appeal the judge's order. All right, the NBA championship last night. Tyrese Halliburton goes out early. He's the star of the Pacers, injures his knee, out of the game. The rest of the game in Oklahoma City, at home, extremely talented, and they prove it last night in Game 7. They win at 103-91 in the finals. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander scored 29 points, 12 assists, and earned the finals MVP. 55 in Lakewood, 56 in Greenwood Village, 57 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue on Monday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast here in Denver this early Monday. Just a few passing clouds, temperatures in the mid-50s by daybreak. For the rest of your Monday, partly sunny, cooler today, highs around 75 with a 20% chance for afternoon and evening showers and thunderstorms. Overnight lows in the upper 50s. Tuesday, cloudy with a chance for showers, highs in the low 80s. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. I'm meteorologist Patrice Sutter in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, so who's paying for these No Kings demonstrations? Well, Douglas County attorney received an online briefing, and it has two key national funders. The Party for Socialism and Liberation, which is run by a Chinese billionaire. They target activities here in Colorado. The Coalition for Immigration Rights, which received $34 million in grants from the Biden administration and funding from Planned Parenthood and numerous leftist families. No Kings funded by China and Biden federal grants. Well, to give us some insight on this is George Teal, Douglas County Commissioner, live in studio. Good morning, George. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We've got a busy next 24 hours or so. We'll get to home rule and that vote coming up here in just a second. But yeah, Douglas County attorney receiving an online briefing about this, and we obviously saw the No Kings rallies were pretty active in Douglas County. What did you guys learn?
Yeah, well, briefing came in from members of the administration. Federal administration, President Trump's administration is looking into this matter because, yeah, it looks kind of like, I mean, you hate to say conspiracy in this day and age without somebody putting a tinfoil hat on you. But yeah, it really is. It's starting to look like a national conspiracy that even, I mean, it even landed in Douglas County, of all places. And it's been so active as an opposition to our home rule initiative. And it's just shocking. I mean, here's a nationwide, funded by China, funded by a communist organization that's actually trying to work against the people of Douglas County having a say in local control issues. It's amazing.
Wow. That's George Teal. He's a Douglas County commissioner. So let's go through this here. The Party for Socialism and Liberation. I've seen like the Denver Socialists and the Denver Communists down at a lot of these anti-Trump rallies. I've been to probably 8 of them at this point, nearly, getting close to double digits. But these are being funded and run by Chinese billionaires. What kind of evidence did they show? What did they tie to or show that it's coming from a Chinese billionaire?
Yeah, it's a case of follow the money. Yeah. And, the nice part is the tie-in to the Biden administration grants. And that's where they could get the lead on where the money's going, how it's being spent. And, all these, even in Douglas County with home rule, we saw no kings register in opposition to home rule within days of us doing the resolution back in March. And so, they're doing it all above board, thank goodness. That way we can at least track the money, see where it's going, notice how it's being spent. But yeah, it's a communist-funded opposition to President Trump that even turns into opposition at the local level against local control, against conservative efforts to increase freedom and liberty. It's shocking.
And I've seen these groups. They seem to be organized. Oftentimes they're wearing the same colored T-shirts down there. They have trucks. They have AV systems. They're out there registering people to vote. And it would make sense to me because the motivation's there. And I think we saw it in 2020 around BLM, that the left believes that if they can show instability, if they can show anger and frustration in the streets, well, then people start to go, well, maybe Donald Trump either brings this upon himself because he's so confrontational, that type of thing, or he's out of control of the communities and we need to replace him in 2020, in that case with Joe Biden. So I think I believe there's a funding mechanism to it because I think the motivation's there for Democrats to use it to score political victories. And it's important for people to understand that this isn't just random people that showed up on the side of the road. Now, I think that there's people intermixed with all of it that aren't paid. And believe me, I wrote a piece on this. I think there's 3 groups that tend to show up at these anti-Trump protests. One is kind of boomers. They're older and they like the institutions that have been created, like Social Security, Medicare.
They were deadheads who were on the internet.
Yeah, creating the internet. That's right. I see the boomers and even folks that came or that we saw on the Saturday, June 10th or June 14th rally, which was the No Kings rally. They're older, they're kind of on the street corners, and it's kind of unique. You go, okay, there's boomers. You get suburban housewives that kind of show up to this event. Then you get Antifa as well. But the people that are organizing this, getting people out, setting the time that they're going to show up, do seem to be paid for, and the motivation to stable Donald Trump's administration. And what you're saying in this interview, stop home rule from taking place.
Yeah, Jeff, I mean, I think we've all lost the muscle memory to recall the very principles of how communism is supposed to spread. The International Comintern and their playbook of, Joseph Stalin in the oil fields of the Caucasus back at the turn of the 20th century, formulating dissent, formulating revolution. And, we've lost that muscle memory because communism kind of died with the Soviet Union, right? But it It hasn't. And so it's still out there. It's still this insipid raise money, funnel money into the revolution, and bring it to every street corner, bring it to every main street in America and around the world.
That's George Teal. He's a Douglas County commissioner. The county attorney received an online briefing about the No Kings demonstration, and this coming from the federal government, that the funding of the Party of Socialism and Liberation is coming from Chinese billionaires. The Coalition for Immigrant Rights received a $34 million grant from the Biden administration now, and as well as funding from Planned Parenthood, which we know oftentimes gets its funding from the federal government, as well as numerous leftist families. Go ahead.
How are they drawing the conclusion the Party for Socialism and Liberation is directly funded by the communist government of China? Because I can't find that. I agree that they are socialists, and I agree that one of the major funders is a Maoist. But I can't find the communist government of China, because the guy that's the major funder is, again, while a socialist and while a Maoist, is American. And his parents aren't from China either. The guy that's the big cash cow. So while we can talk about the idea, and there are some people that are connected to him that are part of the Communist Party inside of China, I'm having a hard time drawing the line going directly from the government of China into the Party for Socialism and Liberation. They may have some influence, but I'm worried about the declaration that the government of China is doing X when I can't trace the money. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying I'm worried about that blank declaration. The idea that it's a bunch of socialists and liberals and they are absolutely want to replicate what could be happening in China. Yeah, that seems fair. But I'm not certain that the critique of it's funded by the Chinese government is necessarily fair in the conversation.
Yeah, the only problem is we got to remember how the Communist Party and therefore the People's Republic of China actually work. If you're doing business and you have a business in China, every organization in China has the capability of being seconded to a government effort. You have to. It's the law. It would be like at any point in time, the federal government could walk in here and give you guys a script and say, hey, this is your show today. That's what goes on in communist China. And it's been that way for, 50 some years, ever since Mao took over. And so we can say, oh, there's no direct link. Well, that's why we still have the concerns with the video platform.
Well, TikTok, but again,
Yeah,
Donald Trump is
TikTok.
on his third delay of that for sale. That law was passed over a year ago, and we're on our third delay. So I disagree with the idea that we're really that concerned about it when we've delayed the sale. The idea of that 3 times already, and that's kind of the issue. And I don't hear the same critiques about businesses in China for things like Apple or Tesla. Nobody says that they're communist
Here's a
businesses.
report that comes from the House Oversight Committee. Reporters from the New York Times tracked hundreds of millions of dollars to these far-left groups that engage in division, disruption, and violence to advance Chinese government propaganda at the expense of U.S. interests. Disclosures under FARA enable the U.S. government and the American people to be informed of the identity of individuals who are acting as foreign agents and to examine their statements and actions in light of the associations and activities. These reports suggest that Mr. Singham, who's a big part of this one particular group, may have acted as an agent for the CCP. Under General Secretary Xi, the CCP is known for its strategy of sowing discord, which refers to efforts to make internal disputes amongst the enemy so deep that they become distracted from the conflict. If Mr. Singham is carrying out this strategy on behalf of the CCP, he may have a FARA registration obligation, concluded the lawmakers. To assist the committee's oversight of this matter, we are requesting a briefing on what steps the DOJ and any component agencies are taking to counter the CCP's influence operations against the United States. So it's at a level now where this guy who's essentially in charge of the Party for Socialism and Liberation and is based out of China And as an American, to your point, Bill, they want him registering as a foreign agent.
Yeah. And there are lots of people that are in the current administration and past administrations that have run afoul of that, as far as not registering as foreign agents. Mike Flynn got into that. There are a whole bunch of them that have gone into that. So we can talk about that.
But I mean, you asked for examples, and
but
that
what I'm
comes from the House Oversight Committee.
Yeah, but you know what that didn't say, though? It didn't show directly that that the guy was taking money in order to run the Party for Socialism and Liberation. They're saying there could be influence, and there could be influence. But then again, we also have Apple and Tesla inside of China as well. Could be influence there. I understand this, and I would love to see what the DOJ went, and could he possibly be working to push issues for the Chinese government here? Yeah, but that would also technically not only make him a foreign agent, but also make him a lobbyist. So again, not that untoward. So that's the idea.
But Bill, it's not Apple. It's the Party for Socialism and Liberation.
Yeah, I understand that. But what I'm showing, but the issue was that China. We started with the statement of China is doing X. I'm just challenging.
I said a Chinese billionaire.
Yeah, but
is doing X.
But again, he's not a Chinese billionaire. He's American. Not a Chinese billionaire
in China.
But he's
in Shanghai.
I know, but if Elon Musk goes to China, he's not a Chinese man. He's still Elon Musk, resident of America and American citizen. The guy is still an American citizen. So it's hard to say Chinese billionaire. He doesn't have that's not his nationality. His nationality is American. He's an American billionaire
in Shanghai. But okay,
he's an American
but Bill,
billionaire.
I feel like what you're doing is trying to nitpick around the fact that you have money coming from China influencing the activities that are taking place in America
at the local level.
Go ahead, at the local level.
Right. And besides, we're focused on nationality here. The reality is, though, like I said earlier, we've lost our muscle memory for confronting the communist effort. We've just lost that muscle memory.
Why do you think that is?
Because you're talking about nationality, but the guy is very obviously politically aligned with the communist effort. And we got to always remember, crack a history book or two. The reality is the communist plan, sure, the Soviet Union was in Russia. It wasn't supposed to start in Russia. It was supposed to start in England. It was supposed to start in Germany. And then he got kicked off. Everybody would have laughed if you would have said, no, in the 21st century, the great communist superpower is China. They would have laughed at that a century ago. There would have been, it would have been a punchline. It's the communist effort that I think we have all lost focus on that's still out there. It's still real. And we might joke about it, and we might say, listen, there's nothing hard tying this. And yet, there's, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people who still believe the Communist Party line and are willing to work towards it. And then, oh, by the way, let's all remember, they're all out there looking for that useful idiot in a local area on a local item who, kind of believes, that's right, we should be nice to people, we should take care of people. And yet, they're still advancing a communist agenda that, others are willing to kill for.
Yeah, that's fair. But,
go ahead, Bill.
No, that's fair because, the governments, for whatever reason, use all sorts of money to influence. I just push back on the idea that it was China, per se, that was doing X locally. There was Chinese influence, but it was run by an American billionaire. And that's a larger question, but not for this morning. But I think that there's a space for why. Why would this message from the socialists and the communists inside of China and elsewhere all of a sudden find resonance inside of America? Because George Teal, Douglas County Commissioner, talked about the idea that we have forgotten about communism. The question is to why, but that's for another day. That's probably not why you're here today, but that's more of an esoteric, and I'd love to bring you back and talk about that, because why messages from communism and socialism might resonate today in America like it didn't 20 or 30 years ago. I think there's some reasons for that, but that's
government-run education.
That's a different reason. That's a different.
It's probably a really good start.
Yeah, or the fact that you can't buy a house, but that's two different reasons. So we'll see.
Well, then we'll have to crack open the old Marxist dialectic and talk about the disenfranchisement of the worker from the goods that they produce. Cool. We'll get on the internet,
That's George Teal.
Go see a Grateful Dead concert. Cool.
George Teal's Douglas County Commissioner's live in studio with us. We're going to continue this conversation. I'm going to ask him as well about home rule, the votes tomorrow. What do you think is going to happen? We'll get to all of that next. It's spicy this morning, Monday, on the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. George Teal, Douglas County Commissioner, is live in studio with us. We've been talking the No Kings rally and briefing coming from the federal government, as well as the House Oversight Committee. Republicans investigating the funding behind a lot of these riots and No Kings rallies, and concerned that they may be linked to the Chinese Communist Party. And it runs through this guy named Neville Singham, who is active in the Party for Socialism and Liberation, started a consulting business, is in Shanghai, an American businessman in Shanghai. The consulting business is active in the propaganda apparatus of the Chinese Communist Party. He's a socialist, a supporter of Maoism, according to the New York Times. And George Teal saying, well, a lot of this funding for the No Kings rally is now going into the No Home Rule effort. That vote tomorrow in Douglas County, George Teal on the yes on Home Rule side. So, George, one of the text messages that came in is saying, are you essentially saying that the opposition to Home Rule is being funded by the communists?
Yeah, and look at that text. The guy, it's a joke, right? Oh, it's laughable that this assertion is being made. It goes to our earlier conversation. We've lost that muscle memory of what the communist movement really looks like, what it really does. And so now it's like a punchline. And that text message says that. But the idea that this kind of movement, sponsored by known communist parties, are active even in a local question like Home Rule in Douglas County, this guy, it's a joke. But it's not a joke. It's real. The very first opposition group to register for with the Secretary of State right here in Colorado was a No Kings opposition to Home Rule in Douglas County. And so they keep talking about a power grab. Yeah, it is a power grab by the opposition to keep the people of Douglas County from being able to make their own choices. We saw that. Who knows who's funding their legal effort that was defeated in court twice to stop this election? You know, who knows? Nobody can do a Cora request to find out those legal bills, but those were legal challenges. It was a real lawyer arguing in a real courthouse saying, no, this election shouldn't go forward. Why? Because they're opposed to the idea of the people of Douglas County making their own choices.
That's George Teal. He's a Douglas County Commissioner. So how do you think it's going to play out? Votes tomorrow night. What's your read on the numbers? Robust participation right now. I mean, we're over 60,000 votes turned in so far. Obviously, the vast majority of them are unaffiliated voters. And, that makes a lot of sense. We got a lot of people who are unaffiliated in Douglas County. My sense is still very optimistic. I think we're going to win this one. Obviously, I'm in favor of Home Rule. I grew up in Weld County. I've been exposed my whole life practically to the idea that Home Rule puts the power in the hands of the people, much more so than we have right now as a statutory county. I think the people of Douglas County like that idea. It's something that I ran on it back in 20. I ran on it again last year for re-election. People respond to that. I got stopped by a lady about my age with her adult daughter in a coffee shop yesterday, getting afternoon coffee for my wife and I. And yeah, she grabbed me. She was like, "Hey, you're Teal, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm George." And it's like, "Hey, I voted for you. And yeah, we want to do this Home Rule thing." That's the reaction I'm getting when I'm at King Soopers in the milk aisle, when I'm in a coffee shop. Heck, a couple of weeks ago, I got stopped on the street in Castle Rock, walking back from lunch, back to the office. And I think people want this because they do understand. Home Rule puts the choice in their hands. And that's what Home Rule is all about, is giving us that capability, that latitude in Douglas County to push back and resist a little bit some of the really crazy leftist stuff that's coming out of Denver right now. George Teal, Douglas County Commissioner, live in studio with us. So Do you think it's going to go? You think it's going to be a squeaker? Do you think 51-49? Do you think 55-45, 60? What's your gut tell you?
Man, I don't gamble for a reason. I voted in favor of legalizing gambling here in Colorado and the mountain communities, and yet I don't do it because I'm really bad at that kind of stuff. I mean, it's either going to be a squeaker, or it's going to be substantial. I mean, I remember when we did the amendment to the Castle Rock Charter back in 19, and to allow the people of Castle Rock to elect their mayor. And if you talk to the insiders, the chatterers, the political intelligentsia, if you will, of Castle Rock, it was going to go down in a slaughterhouse. Ended up getting 70% yes. Passed. Super simple, super easy. My gut tells me it's going to be something like that.
Well, and explain to our listeners the money battle that's been taking place. Has the opponents registered? How much money have they spent? Where are they putting their money? The proponents of home rule, how much have you all raised? Where's that money going?
Well, we're being outspent. The opposition is outspending us on digital, on the internet. And we're seeing that not from what's being reported to the Secretary of State, because we know their cycle. We're probably not going to see a lot of that detail until, I think it's September. But we can track it by where the money is being spent on the SEO side, on the digital side, and what is being required to buy ad space. And this is what I'm being told, Jeff. I don't know. I'm not doing this work myself. I'm a county commissioner. I'm not a campaign professional. But that's what I'm being told by some of our friends who have come out of the woodwork. All of my people that I know that are working on this, they're all Douglas County residents. They live in Douglas County. And again, they're telling me we're getting killed on digital. I'm getting pieces in the mail, though, in favor of home rule. I don't even know where this is coming from. I don't even know who this is. Everybody that I know that has contributed to the Yes on Home Rule effort, they're all Douglas County residents. They have businesses there. They've chosen to raise their families in Douglas County. And then we get No Kings, the very first opposition effort to register with the Secretary of State. And this tells me this is a target of opportunity for a much bigger opposition. The same people that are burning down Los Angeles and protesting President Trump, they're working against us going home rule in Douglas County. The unions, the FOP tried to start a collective bargaining unit in Douglas County, tried to unionize our sheriff's department last year. They pulled the election almost at the last minute because they knew they were going to lose. Our sheriff's deputies were going to vote against it. Well, this is how they're responding. And they've endorsed the No on Home Rule effort. So I want the people of Douglas County, if you haven't voted yet, guys, find that ballot. You really got to vote, because the people who are in support of home rule are Douglas County residents. They're people who live there, who've chosen to raise their families there, just like me. The people who are against it, they're against it because of the threat it poses against the hold on power that Denver has across this entire state. And they don't want a home rule in Douglas County. Why? Because it diminishes their power under the Golden Dome in Denver. Home rule means power to the people of Douglas County. It's choice for the people of Douglas County. It's that local control. That's not a phrase. It's not the phrase we see bandied about the state capitol every year. It's real. It's a real opportunity to chart our own course, just like Weld County.
That's a great closing argument coming from George Teal, Douglas County Commissioner. We'll continue this conversation. If you feel differently about home rule, you're welcome to give us a call at 303-696-1971. Text us at the Dan Campos Law text line, 720-819-5115. Even if you have a question for Commissioner Teal, never afraid to take calls and answer your questions. Give us a call again, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Live in studio is George Teal, Douglas County Commissioner. It's the final 24 hours before the home rule vote in Douglas County. Interesting information. I did not know that the first group to register against home rule was No Kings. And to your point, not just your point, but the federal government, saying that a lot of these No King rallies, the LA riots, they're looking into links with the Chinese Communist Party and where the funding is coming from for these. And so you're making the linkage going, well, No Kings registers in Douglas County. Federal government is looking and investigating links between Chinese Communist Party and No Kings. Are they getting involved? Is some of this money going towards no home rule in Douglas County? Now, one of the text messages coming back to us is, okay, well, if you're saying that the opponents to home rule are funded by communists, are the supporters of home rule funded by developers and water speculators? Your response, sir?
I'd say that's an argument we've heard. I don't know about all that. What I know is those who have donated are Douglas County residents. Those who are working on the effort, they're Douglas County residents. They're in the community. Here's a good one, Jeff. One of the donors, he's a major benefactor for a private school, Lutheran High School in Parker. Another one of the benefactors, another one of the donors is a major benefactor for a charter school in Douglas County. Okay, all these little dog whistle things, well, you can't say that they're benefactors to something other than the public school system, so they've got to be bad. How can we make them bad? Oh, let's call them developers and land speculators. Forget the fact that they live there in Douglas County. They are working to make their community better. That's who I know of. I've actually turned down a donation effort from a developer that came at me, and I was like, "Nah, this isn't your thing." He lives in Greenwood Village. I've known him for a while. Nah, this isn't your thing. We're good, thanks. So I appreciate the attack. It keeps it spicy, but it's pointless because it ignores the fact these are residents. These are people who own business in Douglas County. They're raising their families in Douglas County, just like I did. But they're being demonized for something else. So, hey, I get it. I appreciate the attack, the critique, but you're still saying, no, the people of Douglas County can't have this say. We've got to find a way, just like we were talking about, to demonize them, to put them on the fringe. And that's the whole thing about home rule. It goes back to who should have that control. Is it the people of Douglas County, or is these outside groups that want to support the Denver agenda?
That's where I find the irony with No Kings.
Totally. I mean, again, I think it was probably nothing. I remember watching that pop up on the Secretary of State registration and thinking like, okay, well, that's silly. And then, of course, their rhetoric was Abe, Kevin, and I, my colleagues, Commissioner Layden and Van Winkle, we're acting like three kings. And that was their rhetoric. That was their thing. And then we watch No Kings burning L.A. to the ground.
Well, it seems like No Kings would prefer that Jared Polis be the king.
It's a little does anybody actually know the theme when he got inaugurated to his first term of his inauguration? It really was a little mask that you could walk around and put up, and it was a picture of Jared's face with a crown. King Jared.
Oh, I think I remember that, yeah.
And everybody's forgotten about that, right? And it was, oh, hey, Jared's the king. And it makes sense. The guy, I mean, come on. The guy did great in business very early on. He, good on him for that. I'm a capitalist. I'm A-okay with somebody making money. But yeah, that translated to now he's the king of Colorado. And of course, I'm sure everybody destroyed as many of those pictures as they could. I think my daughter still might have one of them on her phone because, unfortunately, she came back from Boston College with the wrong party registration.
That's George Teal. George is a Douglas County commissioner. The vote for home rule is tomorrow. It's probably too late to mail in a ballot at this point, right?
Absolutely
so you
too late
to drop it off in the ballot collection.
You
box.
bet. And if you need to find a ballot box to drop off your ballot, go to douglasvotes.com, and you'll be able to find on Douglas Votes where you can drop that ballot. Too late to mail it in. You got to drop it. Or vote in person. In-person voting tomorrow will be up, and go to Douglas Votes in order to find those locations.
This is a big deal for Douglas County. Now you're going to get another bite at the apple to vote in November with regards to the approval of the charter for home rule. But this vote tomorrow is for whether or not we pursue home rule, Douglas County pursues home rule, and who those members of the charter drafting committee are.
Exactly. If you believe in local control, you want to vote yes on that first question, and then do your homework, folks. DCLocalControl.com is a place where you can go, and they have the profile of certain members of candidates who are running to be charter commissioners. I know this because I'm on it.
You're on it? Abe Layden, Kevin Van Winkle, Frank McNulty, lots of people on that, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
Ted Harvey, Jen Green, the former mayor of Castle Rock, one of Castle Rock's best mayors.
George, thank you for swinging by today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jeff.
Appreciate it. We'll continue. We have John Decker traveling with the president next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.